So welcome everybody to our May 9th CSD board meeting. I'm going to first do the instructions on how to make public comment during the meeting, and then I will call to order. So during the public meeting, since we're not on Zoom, at points during the meeting when the meeting chair requests public comment, members of the public shall indicate their desire to speak. All member comments shall be addressed to the Board of Directors and limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The Board of Directors may choose to respond to comments or request staff to respond at the conclusion of the comment period. All right, so I'm going to call to order, and everybody is present and accounted for. And so let's take a look at the agenda for adoption. Is there any questions about the agenda? Do we need to move anything for Chief White? Do you need to move up Chief White? No? Eric, was there any additions? Stephen, would you like to make a comment about the agenda?
Well, actually, not the agenda, but the last meeting's recap. I would like to talk about that.
Okay, so we'll do that during the consent calendar. All right, so let's pass this agenda. So a motion to adopt the agenda as it is. All in favor?
Sure.
Any opposed? No? Okay, moving forward. We are going to go on to the consent calendar. Do the board members have any issues or questions with the consent calendar of the draft minutes for regular meeting from last month or the bills paid?
Nope.
Okay. I asked the thing that I needed to ask beforehand, and it was as I expected. All right, Stephen, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Last month's report on what we did, it mentions the public comments, and it says I was talking about landscaping, and I never mentioned landscaping. What I talked about last month was the fact that we've got a wall that is taking about 2,000 square feet of our property, that is Marinwood Park property, and it's basically appended it to our the adjacent neighbor. That doesn't belong there. We are now, and I'm going to just reiterate the points I made last month. We are parking a trailer illegally on Miller Creek Road, and that could be a spot to park that trailer off the street and be in compliance with the county regulations regarding commercial vehicles on the street. So that, I would like you to correct that and also note my comments that I just made. That's it.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
And I would like you to act on it. I mean, I'm not just making a remark. You can review the tape. You can see what I said. It's a problem when you don't accurately report what occurs here. Okay? This is public. This is a public meeting. You can't just make up stuff that, if I say something and you want to characterize it in a way that is accurate, that's good. If you characterize it falsely, you've impacted the integrity of this body.
All right, thank you. All right, so since there's no questions, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. All right, public comment, open time for items not on the agenda. Speakers may comment only on non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The board may not take action on, consider, or debate items not on the agenda except under narrow circumstances. Meeting statutory tests. Response to comments on non-agenda items will be limited to factual information or clarifying questions from staff or board at the conclusion of the public comment period. The president may refer the matter to staff or to future meeting agendas. All right, go ahead, Stephen.
Yes, so I have two things to talk about. First thing is kindness, and the second thing is integrity. And I'll start with the kindness. I am neighbors with Linda Barnello, who used to attend all these meetings. She is quite frail. During COVID, she's been isolated. She had a back and hip issue, and she's having challenges, as are a lot of our neighbors, especially those who live alone. And I think it would be wonderful if the CSD could actually reach out to Linda, just because she's a friend of the district. She's donating probably more money to this district than just about anybody. Maybe with the exception of your family, she's done a lot, especially for the fire department. And I just think it would be a very nice act of kindness to reach out to her and just say, hey Linda, we miss you. Now maybe you don't want her back here, but I think just acknowledging that. We also have other neighbors, Marilyn Boatwright, who used to serve on the Park and Rec Commission. She also lives on Quietwood. She's having trouble getting around, you know, Marilyn. Why not reach out to our neighbors, especially the ones that have been here for a real long time? I don't know what we can do, but I would like you to think in terms of that. The second thing is integrity. So the first point that I made was completely bypassed. You just approved the calendar like I didn't have anything to say. And you know, last month I said, hey, you guys are just hammering down stuff, you're not really listening. Well, there's another example. I'm sorry. The integrity in which we run this community is based on all of your personal integrity. This weekend, I was by the maintenance shelter, the maintenance thing, and I happened to run into the architect. I asked the architect, how come the vehicles are parked outside? And he, in his charming way, told me to F off, and it was just really nasty to me. But the problem is that we've got the most expensive project we've done in years, and there's never been any accountability on how this project works and why the mistakes were made and how we can avoid making similar mistakes in the future. I had pointed out that there was going to be a problem with access, and sure enough, that's what occurred. And I duly hope that you individually have the integrity to follow up and make sure that things are done responsibly here. That's all I have to say. Have a nice meeting.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for your comment.
Thank you, Steve.
Have a great evening. All right. I guess there's no other people from the public, so moving on to district matters. We're going to look at the financial year 2023-2024 proposed district operating budget, and we are to approve it after we have a little bit of discussion. Eric, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll be brief. I gave you a pretty detailed staff report, included all the notes from the previous times. You guys have seen the budget. There really isn't much change from the one that you looked at last month. The things that did change were primarily what I had identified last month as would be needed. I did look at the property taxes after all of the April allocations and made some slight adjustments to a few of those. Made some adjustments to fire department supplies and equipment expenditures, and some fairly significant adjustments to various utility expenses, mostly water, sewer, and gas and electric, which have seen some significant increase in cost, as anybody who gets a PG&E bill is well aware. The one thing I did want to point out in this budget, and I know we've talked about this a little bit, and I'll talk about it more in my other report, but this budget does not incorporate any wage increases or pay increases for non-represented staff. That basically is our admin department of one, and then our park and rec, as well as our park and rec So that's coming along, I'll talk more about that later, but just wanted to be clear that that was not included in this budget that I am proposing to be approved at this time. When you look at it from a balance sheet perspective, as of April 30th, the net balance of cash available, meaning with the not counting any of the restricted funds that we have, was at about 7.7 million. So we're still in really good shape from a cash perspective, over a year's worth of operating, which is great. That's an increase of a little over 700,000 from the same point in time last year, and we've done some significant spending in the past year, so that's a good place for us to be. This budget, again, those of you, I mean, everybody's been on this board long enough to know I try to budget fairly conservatively, and this is a conservative net gain of a little over 440,000. That's consistent with what it's been in past years, most recently, and we've been able to either meet and or exceed that from a net gain standpoint. So I feel relatively good about that. What this does not include is any of the capital expenditures that we could be looking at for the FEMA claim out back. That said, I still have no reason to believe that we won't get 93.5% of that covered and reimbursed through FEMA as well. So as we are able to get more accurate costs on that, I'll report that, and I have more updates on that in my district manager report. Otherwise, I did try to give you guys some notes. I would just point out a couple things on the current secured property tax, which is the largest tax bucket. I looked at what I am expecting for this year, and then I added about 1% to that for next year. I try to keep conservative on that. I'd rather exceed it than fall short, and I think that's a safe place to be. And that's 1% over what I'm expecting, not over what I budgeted last year, because we're going to exceed what we budgeted for. Utilities on the water and sewer side, on the park specifically, that's about a 30% increase. That might be over budgeted on my side, and some of that large cost from the last 12 months is, we had a lot of water leaks, we had a lot of the piping that needed to be fixed. When that happens, water moves pretty quick through there, but all of the system is pretty aging, so I wanted to stay on the safe side for budgeting that. Okay. On the rec side, I did leave a note here on the top, but just wanted to point out that, at this time last year, we still had some uncertainty on some certain things with rec, which is why you might see some larger disparities from what was budgeted last year, but not necessarily what we're trending towards in the actuals that we've got this year. So that explains some of those, is that because especially on the pool side, we budgeted the pool fairly conservatively last year. And then utilities and gas, with heating the pool, this winter was exceptionally cold, it felt like. So that's got like a 50% increase to it there, and that is almost entirely due to just gas costs and heating the pool. And then on the fire department side, same issue with utilities increase. And then on the miscellaneous supplies, I would like to thank Captain Brackett next door. He really went through, did all of the research. Miscellaneous supplies is where we budget for all of the personal protective equipment, PPE, things like turnouts, wildland gear, everything. He went through really good and gave me a good sense of what we're gonna, could need next year, as well as all of the most current pricing of all the stuff that we use. So once we punch that in, that brought that budget up by about 23%. So, but that's pretty critical equipment if you're a firefighter. So I want to make sure that we have that. And they have good plans for rotating and making sure that as things get past their useful life, we're well planned and we know when those are. So you did a lot of really good work for me on that, and I was appreciative. Otherwise, I am happy to take any questions you might have. Obviously, there's a lot more notes, but I feel like going through every one of them.
I mean, this has been rehashed multiple times. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Is this our final time that we're reviewing this for the year?
This is looking at adopting the budget.
Without pay increases in here, correct?
Correct.
With the notion that once that is negotiated, then it was okay to amend a budget. So we want to adopt a budget so that they know what they're working with, and then it's always okay to amend it when we come to things like that. So that's why we're moving.
Yeah, and I do have a little something on that in my district manager report, but Siobhan's point, budget amendments are a very common process. This lets you know where we currently stand from a budgeted standpoint. We'll be looking at bringing back a more formal policy and procedure on how all those reviews will take place. At that time will also be recommendations likely for wage increases. And depending on the scope of that, we could easily put together a budget amendment that would affect not only the salary lines, but all of the ancillary lines, things like pension, payroll tax, workers' comp, all of that is, kind of what's referred to as the fully burdened costs. So we could easily update all of that and come back with an amendment. So that way, when we're looking at this next year, you're not looking at an old document that we know is outdated.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Right.
So the bottom line, we won't be projectedly ending up with $414,000.
443. You're looking at
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah,
Likely not. Depends on what happens with the wage scales.
okay.
Last year was 414, so
I
we're
saw,
still,
yeah.
we still have a lot of cushion above that too.
Anybody else?
Yeah, and I'd expect that next month with Kevin.
All right.
You what?
I would expect that Luke and I will work on some of that and work with Savannah and Lisa on getting that policy put together, and hopefully by next month we can bring something, and then depending on how that goes, I can bring a budget amendment for the following month.
And then we
Okay,
might even
thank you.
have one if we need for the FEMA stuff, so it's a working document, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, I guess I should say. All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Didn't we already?
Mhm.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of passing the 2023-2024 proposed district operating budget, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Eric, we are on to district manager report.
What a segue. Boy, where to start?
It was a very relaxing, not busy month.
I'll let you know when one of those comes around. Yeah, it's a short packet, but there's a lot of heavy lifts that happen this month, so let's just kind of start with FEMA on where we stand right now. Last week, Matt Smeltzer, who's one of our engineers, joined me and we presented at what's known as the Marin Project Coordination Group. This involves representatives from every major environmental regulatory agency, so from NOAA to Fish and Wildlife, to Regional Water Quality Control Board, to Army Corps of Engineers, representatives from the county, representatives from the, God, I'm blanking on what the RCD stands for.
You could just make it up.
Yeah, the
No,
Conservation
no.
District. That's
Don't
the
say
regional,
that.
it's the Regional Conservation District. One of the main employees there is a very, very useful resource for us. So we presented to them some of the draft plans that we have to date with several alternatives. They provided a lot of feedback on that, which sent us back to the not to the drawing board, but allowed Matt to go back and kind of refine on some of that work too. So it's an informal, non-binding, non-public meeting, but it does give us sense of what we need to modify going into actual application and pre-application meetings. So we've already requested the pre-application meetings with some of the various agencies, and Matt's been great. I don't know where we'd be without him. I have engaged the services of another engineer, a structural engineer, specifically for the building and the water intrusion that came into the below surface pit that's in the building. And he's gonna be designing plans on a building envelope that will ideally serve as a water barrier, a moisture barrier, and a prevention device that'll be on the outside of the building, and that'll be, that work will be done in coordination with the retaining wall. So I've got all three of these engineers talking to each other, and they're playing their plans off of each other and their designs off of each other. So the coordination on it has been really good, and they've been all working well with each other. This other gentleman just got started, but I don't think he's gonna have a huge scope of work behind him, but it will need to be part of the permitting and the plans.
Have a meeting for today.
Yeah, I had a meeting this morning with our FEMA rep. That went really good, mostly to kind of review the damage description, which is done, and then talk about what's known as Cat B expenses, which is for the emergency response work that we had to do, the prevention work that we had to do at the very beginning, and just making sure we had all of that documentation started to put together, because we can submit that at any time. Once I have everything, I'm waiting on a couple other invoices, but once I get that, that's like $5,000 worth of work. That was, in the grand scheme of things, nothing, but it still qualifies as a reimbursable expense. So
That's fine.
we'll be getting that put together, submitting. Otherwise, we're just, like I said, working on all the environmental compliance needs. We have a biologist who will be out later this month to append a report that we actually used for the construction of the park maintenance facility. She's gonna do a brief survey here, but she's already got the greater area of groundwork done for this, so that will be happening.
Can she, sorry I'm interrupting, can she then actually say like, hey, I just did this a year, like 2 years ago, and this is how much this has impacted the area, or I guess
No.
FEMA doesn't really care about the,
They don't care.
okay,
No.
so never mind.
No.
I would be interested to find out how much
Yeah.
it impacted, sorry.
No, she's not even gonna look down in that area, but the
Okay.
broader scope of things still applies. So, her comments on the
Yeah.
creek and everything still apply.
Okay,
Then, that's really kind of about it. The coordination game and just listening into all of these, because you have Army Corps who have certain thoughts and opinions on design plans and the impact of the creek, and then you got Regional Water, who's got the Water Quality Control Board, who's got, just getting something that everybody will accept when you're literally altering the creek bed floor, and then the banks, and it's gonna touch the other side of the bank, and then something that FEMA will also accept, because FEMA is the one who publishes the 100-year floodplain, and you gotta, it's a lift, and if we didn't have Matt,
It'd be
there's
hard.
no way I could pull this off. I couldn't, you have to have this consultant. We got a very, very, very good one who, as soon as we got in this meeting, and he's like, oh, hey, Nicole, hey, Jenna, he's just talking to all these people. He's interacted with all these agencies a lot. He's the right person for the job. So, with that, any questions before I move on any of the FEMA stuff? I don't have updated cost estimates. I'm not gonna know until we get more final plans set that we know what we can do, and then we'll be able to give some more realistic estimates. It's not gonna be cheap.
yeah.
I just want to say how impressed I am and thankful that you are handling all this and delivering all those acronyms.
Well, I just use big words or acronyms, and it makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Well, and then
No, I
knowing-
agree.
But I do appreciate
that
that you handle this and
I appreciate
and you
that.
knew that the money question was gonna come, so thank you for.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's a lot of work. Luke's been helpful as much as he can. I chip in as much as I can. Matt and our engineers and our consultants have been excellent to work with. We've got a really good team that's going with it. So that helps a lot. We actually do have, the only other thing I would say is early next month, it's already scheduled, that we're gonna have some people out there who are gonna do some boring. Basically, they're gonna drill down 20 to 25 feet, so that way they can do more proper soil samples and everything else that goes more for the civil design on the retaining wall or whatever might be needed up at the top. But so work is scheduled, work is happening. I mean, the project's moving forward. We have a very aggressive goal of trying to be able to complete this work this year before the next rainy season. I would say it's a coin flip right now. If we're most people, you would never be able to do that, but due to the nature, and the agencies are already saying, look, you can always apply for emergency this and explain why, because we don't want to go through another rainy season hoping that it doesn't have another catastrophic event back there.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything till you get permitted and clearance by what is a minimum of a half a dozen different federal and state agencies.
Well, and I'm just impressed with how fast you guys all jumped on this and
Yeah.
with the right people.
Well,
in
knowing
place for
already
us.
the right people to talk to, so thank you, yeah.
I appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to the part,
Okay, park play structure, we crossed a major,
hurdle,
hurdle, or I don't wanna say landmark, but
stepping stone,
no. Milestone, that's the word I'm looking for, a big milestone, on last week on Monday, the RFP formally went out. I sent you guys all an update about it, it's on the website if you wanted to look at what it is.
I did.
We're definitely getting some questions and response and interest from a handful of vendors. Luke and I met with one of the vendors today who came in for a site visit, had some good questions, looked at both sites. And I've already got a handful, right now, maybe 4 or 5 that have already expressed interest and want to be on the prospective bidders list. Some of them had some good questions that we realized we're gonna need to come up with formal answers for and push it out to the group as an addendum.
Okay.
But I'm feeling good about it. Again, I would encourage you to look at it. In terms of the timeline, again, we're trying to be kind of aggressive with this too, because ultimately I would like to be able to award this as soon as possible, strictly for the fact that there are lead times involved. So we want to give an award out with as much lead time as possible. That way we can ensure that we get the equipment, the things that we want in time. May 31st is the deadline for submittal. Staff will kind of go through them at that point, just making sure everything is qualified. We will likely call a special meeting of the Park and Rec Commission with the goal of sharing the qualified proposals. That would be a public meeting. We'll push that out. Public will be able to come in and take a look at them, and ultimately with the goal of coming down with a recommended option for ideally the June 12th board meeting, with a recommendation to accept one of the proposals. So that would be, yeah, so we're
It's June 13th.
okay, June 13th. So we're moving.
So when would be that Park and Rec?
I don't know yet. I haven't set that up, and I gotta herd 5 other cats for
Okay.
schedule availability
Alright, let us
and see when they can make it. So that would be a special meeting. I'm tentatively actually thinking about, and I haven't even talked to Chief White about this, although I don't know that he would strongly object, but potentially postponing the next fire commission meeting and having this Park and Rec meeting in that place instead. I know, see, everybody's so disappointed. But, so just looking at when rooms are available, when people can be available, everything else, anytime you've got to coordinate schedule with multiple people, it gets tricky. But that is, again, we've crossed a good milestone, thank you, Luke. And we're chief or whoever whispered it down there, appreciate it. So, that was also a big lift, but happy to get it out, happy it's done. I'm actually really happy. Thank you to Luke, who certainly helped out and weighed in on a lot of that too. And I think the RFP is good, and I hope that it meets our needs and we get some really quality proposals out of it.
How many proposals have we gotten so far?
Oh, we won't get any until May 31st.
Okay, so that's the day that they all get submitted at the same time.
My experience with things like this are, yes, you get the proposal usually within the last hour of
It's
when
like
they're
when you
due.
did
It's like a wedding.
your
RSVP
college
wedding.
essays, where you log in at 11:10
Mhm.
so that you can be in before it turns 11:59 p.m.
Mhm.
And so you're in on that day, right? Right, Eric? Like at the last.
I always did all my work well in advance, procrastination is not a word I ever
Sure.
do.
But I did want to say, I looked at online at the RFP, and I really am excited that we are moving forward with stuff that the public has been saying. Stephen also said this previously, that we're gonna try to do the park structure with more natural looking materials and colors versus the stuff we all grew up with the forested colors in the park and kind of.
Wait, I didn't look, we don't get a metal slide?
So.
I do have an old school merry-go-round that, and a metal jungle gym that we put in there, so. But this is why, I mean, again, this is a design and build.
Yeah.
So-
No, I was just excited to see that we're gonna be doing stuff that's, you know, with the nature.
No,
Alright.
it'll be good.
Alright,
I do have a
think
question.
Kathleen had a
Yes.
question, yeah.
Do you have to wait for the bids for John to go after funding?
I don't know
what
anybody
funding?
who's going after anybody.
We got funding.
We already have the funding for the.
Oh, never mind.
Play structure.
Trail.
Oh, I was thinking of the trail, sorry.
yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry.
this is- This is,
The trails later on, yeah, we're not, we can't get to that yet.
And then otherwise, just a couple other little notes on here. Again, thank you to Lisa and to Savon, who gave up a few hours in an afternoon to meet with Luke and I, and we talked about the policy for the regular review of non-represented staff pay scales. Had a good brainstorming session. I thought, I haven't made a lot of headway since that meeting, but with a lot of this other stuff now kind of in the wait and see mode, I can get to work on that, so hopefully be able to bring, if nothing else, a draft to the June meeting, ideally something far beyond a draft that the board would actually want to consider and potentially adopt and approve. And then the storage cargo containers have been sold. I expect them to be gone hopefully by the end of next week. We actually wound up selling them to the Marin County Open Space District, who had a definite need for them. As they jumped on it and took one look at them and said, yes, we'll take them. So they are just coordinating transportation and a little site prep for where they are moving them to.
Is it just over there? So
No, one of them's going, they're going to two of their park areas.
okay.
So
Wait,
they're
they're going into a park?
And they're the county, they can do whatever they want.
not our park. Will they be removed before camps?
Oh, yeah. No, hopefully by the end of next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I gave them, because we do a lot of work with open space. I knew it would take them a few weeks, but once they committed to them, I said, they're yours, and if they need to sit for a few weeks, we're fine with that. But we're getting $4,800 for them, so I was,
For both of them?
all
Each?
together, yeah, no,
oh, no,
together.
each, okay.
That would be more than we paid.
Oh, that's
So,
right. I was like, okay,
Sale.
any
Yeah.
other questions, comments?
Thank you for your report.
Yeah.
Thank you for
You're
the report,
very
very thorough, and thank you for your continued efforts.
I will say, as an interesting little aside, when the open staff people came by, and one of them was their chief maintenance person, they wanted a quick little tour of the maintenance facility, and quickly asked if I happen to have digital copies of the plans, because they thought it was perfectly well thought design for all the needs.
They
Very
wanna
cool.
set
Can we sell it to them?
The building or the design?
Yeah,
Design.
Both.
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna move on to item F, fire department matters. Did we not have a fire, a meeting?
Nope.
Okay, so then that's why there's nothing there.
It was an off month.
All right, chief, take it away.
All right, well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Fairly light in content, but I can certainly cover what we do have. Thankfully, this past Wednesday, I was unavailable, but Eric was able to step in and provide some guidance on our ops committee meeting with the MWPA. The advisory technical committee has submitted information regarding the recommended projects for prioritization and funding, and all tied in with the budget. And we were struggling to get folks for that meeting for a number of reasons, but thankfully, Eric, as always, is Johnny on the spot, or Eric on the spot in this case. So with that, we were able to move through and get this done, because otherwise, the board of directors would not have had something to review and approve by May 18th, which is what the timelines were. So the great thing is, from what I understand, everything went through smooth sailing, both from the ops committee recommendations as well as the ATC. And on the 18th, we anticipate the board of directors will approve the next or upcoming work plan and budget. So with that, there's some large scale projects that are planned. One for Novato and their shaded fuel break, 60 miles worth of work. That's an amazing amount of work. But I thought I would mention that just because they're our adjoining neighbors, and it's certainly something to take note of.
You know where?
It didn't give me specifics, but from what I do know, and I'll try to get this information, I'll bring it back to the next meeting, the width of the break can range anywhere from 100 to 300 feet. So that's a substantial amount of vegetation that they're looking to remove over roughly 3,500 acres. And that could adjust upward or backward just depending on how things progress. But that's one big break.
It's basically the border of the entire city limits on the western side from the south all the way through to the north. Part of it is Pacheco
Pacheco
Valley
Valley,
yeah.
over here, so at the
Makes
bottom
sense.
of, if you go up over our hill and you drop into Pacheco, all of that, I mean,
Okay.
this is a huge multi-year project.
I think you were in a J.
It was, there's a great
Article
article about it in the
Very
IJ. One of the advantages, and advantage, disadvantage, but for that zone, Novato Fire District is the only agency in that zone. So they're not,
What
it's,
do you mean?
so the MWP is broken into 5 zones. And within those zones are the various things. So Santa Fe, it's nice here in Santa Fe because it's literally just us in the city. So the coordination between multiple agencies is very simple because we coordinate with Santa Fe on 1,001 things already.
Yeah.
In Novato, it's only the Novato Fire Protection District. So as they're planning out projects, they have the entire zone's worth of funding to work with. in central marine zone, you have like 6 or 7 different agencies down there that they're all kind of coordinating and competing and everything else. So Novato has a nice bucket by which to work with. This is a multi-year project, and they're actually pursuing millions of dollars in additional funding to get it done. This is a project much bigger than the WPA funding will allow for. Yeah, but it was an impressive project, so hats off to them.
Sounds like a lot of goats.
So a lot of goats.
A lot of goats.
Could include that too, absolutely.
Too bad we didn't invest in them.
Yeah, well, you know, it's something, because I saw where goats and the costs were just increasing exponentially. And I thought, well, goats, can multiply pretty easily. I think, this might be a profitable venture down
Some of
there.
them have on our very property, actually, yeah.
And there's plenty of restaurants to take care of that.
Well, see.
Oh, goodness.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
moving on.
That being said, a lot of the projects were just continuations of current work that's been underway. But there is another project that's coming up in the shaded non-fuel break areas involving us here in Marinwood, San Rafael, and California State Parks. And so with that, a lot of work along the fire trails is set to take place. And it's really designed to just reduce some of the vegetation that hasn't been addressed through either lightning strikes or wildfire over the course of the last century, or either some of the mechanical removal that has taken place in other areas, but we hadn't gotten to those areas. But there could be goat grazing that's also a supplement to that effort. And so there's invasive species, there's some non-native species there. They include acacia, eucalyptus, some broom, and, I'm sorry.
I'm just thinking eucalyptus,
Oh, well,
Sorry.
so given that, there's a definite effort underway to try to create, it won't mirror what we've seen Novato putting forward right now, but it could be like the first phase of multiple projects that could actually have a cross-jurisdiction impacts and helping to create some of those buffers in some of those areas that we think will be certainly helpful to us as we try to continue our risk reduction efforts over the course of the next, how many years we have left? 6?
I believe
At
so.
this point, yeah, 6 years. And hopefully that will extend into 16, given a renewal of Measure C funding,
Of course.
which I anticipate. I'm sorry.
Of course they're gonna redo it.
Yeah, I would expect.
So
I've never heard of the tax.
I hate to keep poking what everybody's poking, but considering the fact that it's trimming and removal of invasive and non-native species such as eucalyptus is the first, do we have any way to budge on that, or?
We had a conversation with MWPA Executive Director's Assistant and CRELOC, and briefly with Mark Brown. Their recommendations stem really from the idea of limiting things up to a certain point, but they didn't necessarily, from what I can recall of the conversation, see value in trying to top off and or remove the trees right now.
Okay, well, those are land, there's nothing,
Right.
right?
And-
Right? So, I guess.
And so
all right.
that's part of the challenge. That being said, it may even come back at some point to us looking to spend some of our existing funding to actually get the trees removed if it's something that we really see as an essential thing that we need to do. What we are hoping still will weigh in on this is the evacuation risk
That's
study and
right.
assessment that has not been finalized.
Okay.
So that will be kind of like our final hope if
But when
there's
that
anything.
pushes, we can, okay.
Right.
There's also a lawsuit and a trial that is happening now, or it might have even just concluded. I don't have all the details in Berkeley, but it was. You familiar with this?
The NWPA put in a legal brief to that
Mhm.
lawsuit
Mhm.
also.
Okay, well,
They're,
please,
they're combined.
Yeah.
please tell, because I don't know what we're talking
Well,
about.
basically, it was just stating that when you do these types of things, you can't just use broad strokes in your descriptions. You literally need to go through and identify every single tree. And even though, yeah, we get it, it's eucalyptus, it still has an environmental impact if you remove it or if you do that. So they were paying a lot of attention to that because it could significantly impact.
CEQA requirements and,
Yep.
yeah, okay. So I don't know if you're familiar with California Environmental Quality Act and all the things associated with that, but Ann Crelock from the MWPA, she actually that's one of her specialties. And so throughout the entire county, folks were just being bombarded with, requests for CEQA. And she's more of a specialist to understand how to actually draft it so that you're not coming back every year with a new request, where this could be a one-time request that extends over an extended period of time. So that being said, we do have subject matter expertise within the MWPA that can assist us, but I don't know what the CEQA implications are for that particular location. So that would be something she could also weigh in on.
Alright, I guess we should wait until the evacuation thing. And
Yeah. Yeah,
And
see what
then
that
start
says.
poking about it again.
That could be another year or so. Within the next year, I think they wanted to get that wrapped up.
That'd be great. I would certainly not like to see it go another year. That's a long time, but to assemble all of that information and ensure that they've got all the data they need, it could very well take a lot more crunching.
Oh, they've been working on it since day one too, so.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Okay.
Just want to remind everyone, the chipper program still is in effect all the way through until the month of August. So go to reserve.chipperday.com/Marin and you can see what dates chipper services will be available in particular neighborhoods coming up here this summer. So certainly encourage everyone to take advantage of that, and the direct assistance opportunity. There's still funding available for direct assistance for those who might have large-scale projects or even fiscal challenges, or just need some support and help trying to get some of this vegetation done, maybe in phases, or even finishing up some of the other stuff that they have not been able to get to up to this point. And Simon Wright is the point of contact still. We've hired 3 more individuals, and I'll speak to that later on in the report. Planned burns, I thought that was an interesting, I had received requests going back, maybe last October, November, and we had even meetings with California State Parks officials and the Marin County Fire Department about doing open POW burns throughout lands that involved San Rafael and the state parks and Marin County. But they were trying to rush this through, and I said, whoa, this is new to me. I think we need to make sure that we understand what we're doing here, when, how, what our redundancy is, our backup plans in the event something goes awry. We have to advise the community, and we certainly have to advise the board of directors and the various leaders from councils and other areas that could be impacted by this and have a public outcry on this, because there's been no communication about it. So we had to kind of back up and slow things down a little bit. County was ready to roll, so was California State Parks, but we weren't quite ready to roll out. But over time, there's been more messaging, there's been more information about how the tactical action plan or incident action plan will be developed, what resources will be staged to ensure that if, for whatever reason, the wind picked up suddenly and this pile started dropping some debris somewhere else, how would that be handled without creating any risk to the community? And so they identified April 26th as being an ideal day to actually start burning those piles. Well, the weather shifted and kind of created a situation where they determined that wasn't probably going to be the optimal day. They're going to push it back. I don't have the new date yet, but I believe they actually may have started some of the burns, even though it wasn't communicated to me directly. So I got to follow up on individuals about that.
I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, they were doing
Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow.
Banana
Okay.
Sleepy Hollow.
And all the, like, at least, I'm sure Miller Creek had this issue too, but Lucas Valley, the teachers closed all the windows and stuff and turned
No,
on
we didn't have
all of their filters again because it literally smelled totally
See.
burnt.
So this is almost like the, what was it, a burn exercise 2 summers ago?
It's probably
The
one,
wind
maybe
shifted and
3,
moved back this way.
Yeah.
Over at Severa Ranch,
Yeah,
right? Mhm.
yeah, and this is the very reason why they're trying to identify the right day, and those who are making the decision to burn or not burn that day need to understand, what the potential impacts are, especially when you're doing this during school year, not during the summer, but even during the summer, you have summer camps, so you have to be mindful even still. Excuse me, weekends tend to be a better choice in some instances, but I'm assuming the decision in that case was made by either the California State Parks folks or the Marin County Fire Department personnel, because our personnel are not taking the lead in San Rafael or Marinwood. We're just really participating and supplementing and providing resources and expertise.
Is San
Sorry,
Anselmo
sorry.
County?
I'm sorry?
Is San Anselmo County?
Probably,
I thought
Could
that
be
they had their
yeah,
own.
it could be Marin County up in the hills though, right?
San Anselmo's Ross Valley.
Excuse me. County had responsibility up until June, I think. Their responsibility is for Ross Valley. They're looking to potentially merge with, or at least have responsibility for Ross Valley and Kenfield assumed by Central Marin Fire Department.
Oh.
So that's underway right now. I think they've been in conversation about it. I don't know if they've come to final agreement though. Because the county is stepping away from that. Chief Weber has had, thank you, a lot of responsibility between fire dispatch, now operating Office of Emergency Services, all of that falling under his shop at Marin County Fire. And having to dance amongst all those various agencies and do what he's done for the past 5 years, I think he's decided that, we probably better serve to be out of the business of contracting with those agencies. And so that's why Central Marin has stepped up as a key player right now. So more to follow on more burn piles if and when those things resume on an ongoing basis. Ember Stomp 2023.
Is that at the Civic Center?
It is. It's the second iteration of Fire Safe Marin's effort to get out in the community and provide a lot of wildfire preparedness and vegetation management and fuel reduction information, just wildfire safety in general and preparedness. And so,
Do you know that, it just says the date, do you know the hours?
I believe it's 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay. That'd be kind of fun to.
And the NWPA will have a booth there manned by the directors.
Nice, nice. So
Are you going?
So go say hi to Bill.
I will be there in the early part of the afternoon.
He won't be there, I just asked him.
We would all have to go, okay,
I will be elsewhere.
elsewhere. Anyways, all right, moving forward.
Yep, so, a live bird demo that day, food, music, and activities for children, so
Is it all
it's,
barbecue?
Free?
I'm sorry, barbecue. You know what, maybe
I'm all
this is
jokes
forest fire,
aside.
maybe forest fire has brought something, right? So, we'll see. Station 58 had a school tour take place there, and they hosted Marin Waldorf School, and they were shown the apparatus and equipment, and received some of the plastic badges and helmets, or excuse me, adhesive badges and plastic helmets,
I
and
was gonna say, we moved up, they're no longer stickers. I
yeah,
might need to
no, we
go.
still have the stickers. And the kids had a great time from what I understand, and I haven't heard of very many other public education tours at this point, but who knows, maybe this summer there'll be some more opportunities for our folks to engage with the kids and the youth. I mentioned earlier we have some new vegetation management team members that are working to get acclimated to how San Rafael and Marinwood does inspections and how we move about doing public outreach and basically just getting acclimated to the reality here in Marin County using Measure C and the requirements of MWPA. And so Michelle Dietrich, she's the new wildfire mitigation specialist who has 17 years experience as a firefighter paramedic. And ironically, a young man named Stephen Campy came to my office yesterday looking for Marinwood patches, old San Rafael patches, and he had a CHP challenge coin he wanted to give me. And I was introducing him to Michelle and Cedric and Sophia, and Michelle knew him right off. She actually had worked for AMR, or excuse me, Paramedics Plus, I think, in Alameda County, and Steve was a regular fixture coming through Oakland, and that's how I've known him over the years. So he's kind of autistic, but not exactly, and so you can tell there's just something a little different about Steve. But she remembered him right off, and they connected again after all this time. So
are we looking from left to right or right to left?
left to right.
Left to
Michelle be on the left, Sophia in the middle, and Cedric on the far right. Yeah, and so she's bringing some great experience, and I interviewed really well. Quinn was excited to have her on board, and then the other two individuals came in close behind her. So we've got new staff that are excited to be here and are hitting the ground running. So, but we're also looking at hiring some more temporary defensible space inspectors, and so that'll continue the effort to ensure that we have not just ongoing year-round personnel, but some of our seasonal staff to come out and do additional work that we had started heavily with seasonal staff the first couple of years, and then transition some of those positions into long-term, ongoing year-round staff. So we're looking to scale back over the course of probably the next couple of years to just a handful of seasonal staff instead of that big robust 12 seasonal staff that we had before. Because we think what we have right now on a year-round basis is gonna be really instrumental in helping us to reduce risk, but still maintain connectivity with the communities and the projects that need to be monitored throughout the year, not just on a seasonal temporary basis. And then last but not least, one fire incident. I understand it was a fully involved vehicle on the Highway 101. Our personnel extinguished the fire, removed some of the belongings to make sure that they were somewhat salvageable, and then put them back in the vehicle before they left. Not sure what started it, didn't get a lot of information on it, but as always, sub 6 minutes total response time. So, and I wish there were some other agencies that could mirror that, but that would just have a tremendous benefit on outcomes for a lot of people that are having medical emergencies, as an example. So, but that concludes my report. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
I do have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that the basically dispatch, have we separated, or are we still in the works of separating from the sheriff?
Yeah, the sheriff has been gracious enough to allow us to continue to try to develop our own dispatch capability. It's no longer going to be co-located right next to his office or where his dispatchers currently are, but it's going to be in another wing of the building. A lot more space to operate from, room for expansion. San Rafael and Marinwood were the outliers with this whole negotiation on how this was going to be paid for and to what degree. And so we just recently submitted or signed a letter of intent to join the entire group. Chief Weber, the Marin County Fire Chiefs Association, we haven't met in 2 months. And so we're meeting next week on Thursday the 18th. And I expect that Chief Weber will have more of an update for us at that point about timelines and next steps. But in the interim, they've identified the space. We know that there's got to be major computer-aided, computer-assisted dispatch equipment upgrades. The Motorola company and the existing system cannot be used for our purposes, so we're going to have to really do some diligence there. There's got to be a several-month window of training and getting staff ready to actually handle emergency medical dispatch and fire dispatch capabilities. We're hopeful that some of the folks that are working with the Marin County Sheriff's Office have an interest in leaving law and coming over to fire, and we're hearing that's possible. We just don't know exact numbers, but that'll help the transition. But we also still have to plan on training individuals and getting them ready. The projected timeline is roughly about February, March, April of next year. I would guess that it's really going to be summer of next year. And the sheriff originally wanted everything done by June 30th of this year, which was unrealistic, and we pushed back and said there's no way. But what he just really wanted to see was progress being made. I think he didn't want something to just start and trail off and they're still having the responsibility 3-5 years from now. So that being said, it's coming. It's not imminent, but it's on the way. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
No, you're welcome.
That was a great report, and
Thank
free
you.
to stay or to leave, whatever
Well,
you
Or
want to do.
drive safely?
Still hungry, and it's gonna be an hour till I get to some food, so thanks.
No.
I
Enjoy
appreciate it.
your evening. I'll see you next month.
Take care,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much.
You're
All right,
welcome.
moving on to Park and Recreation matters, item G, the Park and Recreation Maintenance Activity Reports.
Thank you. Yes, on April 22nd, we had our spring art show. I always like to say how many years we've done, but because we have semi-annual, I get confused easily which one it is. But we've had many art shows, and it was another really great show, probably our best turnout we've had so far. We had over 50 local artists showing works on Saturday, and a great turnout and some really lovely paintings and sculptures and mixed media, and it was just really a nice event. So I want to once again thank Susan Press for curating our art show, being kind of our art director for those shows, and we really appreciate all of her work to put into that, and it was a lovely event. So that was really nice to have that.
It looks like some people really sold some nice good art. So.
Yeah, we sold some pieces. We typically sell, one or more pieces each show. We sold a few more than usual this time, which was great.
It's like five. Yeah.
And it was so there was some really wonderful work there, and it was nice. It was a great day for us. But we actually had an outdoor. I didn't put this in my report, but there was a really cool outdoor. I guess you call it a sculpture, but it was on the little grassy berm just outside the reception hall, and it spanned this whole huge thing. It was this neat structure, and it was I'm not gonna do justice to it.
Circled the lawn.
Yeah, it circled the lawn, and it was a really big cool thing. So that was a neat. We haven't had anything outside like that before, so that was a fun event. And anyway, yeah, it was great. Our next event will be our first installment of the Music in the Park series, which will be on Friday, June 23rd. I don't have the details yet for the lineup, but I'll definitely announce that as soon as we know who else is playing. And then midway through the series will be our Summer Brew Fest, and I'll also be announcing details about that probably in our next meeting. So stay tuned for that. We're excited for our summer events coming up. The pool's been going great. We had a little bit of a mini heat wave there, about a week of nice warm weather that brought a lot of new people and returning people to the pool. We sold a lot of memberships and punch cards and a lot of pool party rentals. So that was nice to kind of get people thinking about swimming again, and then it started raining on everybody again. But things are going great down there, and we're looking forward to our summer season. We've done really well with our summer programs for the pool in terms of lifeguard training classes, our guards and training camp, and swim lessons, which are pretty much sold out at this point for the summer. So that's really
nice.
Great. We hopefully will be able to add more depending on our instructor availability in pool space, but as of right now, what we're planning for, things are popular and selling well. So, and just on a random note, I got some calls this week about people looking for pools to swim at about different hours, and looking at some of the other neighboring pools. We're one of the only pools offering recreation swim every day of the week, and top pool hours, and open every weekend day. So that which surprised me. I thought we had more pools that were open in the area, but a lot of places are waiting until Memorial Day. So just one thing, we're one of the only games in town right now, which is odd, but it's nice that we're able to staff the pool and be open. So that's a good thing.
Take advantage of that.
Absolutely. I didn't put this in my report because we hadn't had it finalized yet, but we're really excited. This summer at the pool, we're partnering with Silverman's Ice Cream, and we'll be selling Silverman's at the pool, which we did for a short time a long time ago, and for whatever reason that faded out. But we're bringing Silverman's Ice Cream back, so we're excited to be able to sell some
What
other
flavors?
items.
Is it going to rotate? I'm really interested in this.
To be determined. We will hopefully by maybe not this weekend, but next weekend we'll have ice cream for sale down there, possibly sooner. So check it out. Check out the menu. It should be great. So we're really excited about that, and that'll be really fun. We're grateful to Curtis Silverman for being willing to partner with us and help us out with that. So that'll be great. One update about summer camps. We got the school schedule recently and finding out that the local school districts are starting a week later than originally anticipated for than what historically had been done. And so parents are looking to us to what are our kids going to do for the end of the summer. So we are looking to potentially add another week of summer camp that we hadn't originally anticipated. We have not announced any details about that, but working with staff to make sure we have camp staff to be able to accommodate that and see if we can offer an additional week of programming.
What is the first day of school then? Is it
I
usually
don't
like the
have
third
all
week?
the details on that,
What's
but
the first day of our school?
I will have to check back on the calendar. And hopefully I'm not dropping this news on all of you.
Yeah, you are. Thank you.
But
That's okay, she's 8th grade, she's at camp.
I always thought it was the third week. It was the Thursday of the third week.
She's
So I assumed
Chris.
it was going to be the 17th, but you're saying it's going to be maybe the 24th because it's a week
It'll be
later.
the 22nd.
The 22nd?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
No, so it'd be the 29th then?
No, the 22nd.
22nd of August is the first day.
Isn't that normal?
No, usually we start on a Thursday.
So it's the week following the week that normally the school starts. So we typically offer 9 weeks of summer camp. This week we're looking at offering a 10th week to accommodate the change in the school start date. And we will have more details coming. We're going to send information out to our summer camp enrollees and see what we can do. But it'll probably be a scaled back offering just because we will not have the normal staffing that we'd have the previous weeks for that. But we are working to be able to accommodate the families that are impacted by that and make sure we can offer some sort of programming for those. So
You can have an activity and help Chris set up his classroom.
yeah, I mean that would be great.
Just what Chris wants.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Chris is taking the first week off of the school year.
Good on you. Good on you. And an update about our preschool program. Our preschool year concludes on June 1st, and we'll have a wonderful preschool graduation ceremony, which is always a fun celebration. But this year marks the end of the tenure of our preschool supervisor, Kate Kelly, who's been with us for 6 years. And she's starting her own preschool program out of her home, and we're really excited for her. And she's leaving on great terms, and we wish her all the best. Our preschool program will be taken over by Elena Fuchs, who has been in the program the last 3 years as one of our teachers. And this year specifically, she's been training alongside Kate with the intent to be taking over the program next year. So we're really grateful. We kind of got a bonus year out of Kate this year we weren't expecting, so it was able to be more of a transitional year that's really helped us pass the torch. So we're really grateful for that. She's been a wonderful preschool supervisor. She's run a great program after Susan retired 6 years ago, and we're looking forward to the next chapter in our wonderful little preschool. And I was looking back and realized that Elena, who will be taking over next fall, will be only our 4th preschool director in over 40 years. So that's a lot of longevity and long tenures for our preschool directors, and a lot of continuity, which we're really grateful for. So looking forward to next year and see what that holds. Before going over to the Parks Maintenance Activity Report, does anyone have any questions or comments about the recreation report?
Just let Kate know that we appreciate and thank her for the 5 years that she was doing, and then the bonus year that she gave us that she was willing to stay on and train. It's very kind of her, and we really appreciate her partnership with us. And
yeah, absolutely. We're going to be doing we're going to be all the preschool teachers and the rec staff are going to be doing a lunch to kind of honor her and celebrate. I think this is like next week, so definitely pass it along to her.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, on the maintenance side, we've unfortunately been hit with a barrage of irrigation issues, I'll just say, which come in waves every so often. With a park as old as ours, we have a lot of irrigation infrastructure that predates even Marco, who's been here for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So it's eventually pipes and repairs and glue and parts wear out as the ground settles and things. So we did find we had a leak over just outside the pool by the fire, just outside the fire gate over here a couple weeks ago, and repaired that. That led to a couple other issues, and we ended up doing kind of a major overhaul of a section of our irrigation, which was much needed. It turns out we replaced some repair work that was probably 40 plus years old and just failing. So made some improvements and repaired some things. Thankfully, nothing that we had ever worked on before with this current staff. So it wasn't, looking like, one of our repairs from the last few years had gone bad. There's something that was predates just about everybody here. But the guys have spent a lot of time in the hole digging and gluing and figuring out angles and geometry and trying to make sure everything is right. So they've been working really hard out there to get everything working, especially with the weather warming up, trying to get the water back on before the grass starts to dry out. So I'm really proud of the park staff for working very quickly and being very smart and putting their heads together to try to get things working as best as possible. They had just kind of repair after repair after repair the last few weeks, but it seems like, knock on wood, everything is holding well, and the water's back on. We're irrigating the park as planned, and things are looking really good. So that did kind of put a wrench in our plans for a few weeks there, but everything seems to be back up and running for the time being. And so that was always fun. And these things seem to come in waves, and we got our wave this year. So, but everyone's crossing their fingers that we don't have any more repair work out in the park in the near future. But in spite of all that, we've been able to do some of our annual turf maintenance and enforcement to get it ready for the summer. We've been doing fertilizing. We'll be doing some seeding next week, and we did some aerating in all the parks. And the grass is looking really good, really healthy, and I think it'll be robust going into the summer. So we're excited about that and optimistic. The staff has also been getting ready to do the sort of repair the landscaping in the north end of the park with the exiting of the cargo containers. Hopefully by the end of next week, we'll be kind of rehabilitating the park up there and replacing some of the turf and doing some plantings and some other things. So we're making plans for that, and also just finishing some of the picnic tables and benches at the pool. But yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments, please let me know.
I don't have any questions, but we'll already know.
Just, every time Chris finds a piece, he hands it to me.
A piece of the pool?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I will.
Building
He can't-
necklaces for
He
everybody.
can't just put it there for you to find.
I got a delivery of a
first.
bag of parts of that.
Of
So two
presents
things,
from
I which I did put in my report because some of this came to light after I had already written this. But on the lane line side for the pool, we do have new lane lines coming in. We expect them this week. We have a plan B if they're not quite ready for this weekend swimming. We'll have a workaround, but we expect them to be here either Thursday or Friday and should be installed. And also,
Everybody train the lifeguards so that they don't smack them on the.
yes, and also that. As far as the plaster, some of our plaster is chipping off on the bottom of the pool, and we have some calls out to a few different contractors to come and address that for us. We have an in-house plan for that if we can't get a more robust repair, but we have a couple options for that as well, but we're hoping to get someone in here. We had a really great company that was coming in annually to do some patchwork on our pool shell, and unfortunately the gentleman that ran that company is retired, and we haven't been able to get him back this year. So I'm looking for an alternative, someone that has the scuba gear to go down there and do patchwork. It's kind of a very specialized, kind of odd industry, and pool shell patchwork is not a lot of people do it, and do it like just like spot treatment without a full replacement. So we're working on it. I got a lot of contacts, and I'm working on that. But worst case scenario, we'll be down there doing some.
So do you have to so we can do spot, but at what point, you don't ever have to drain the water, do you?
If we were going to replace do a full pool shell, which someday we will need to do a pool shell replacement, we would drain the pool at that point. But in the meantime, our pool shell is in relatively good condition. If we can continue to patch some of the areas that are getting stressed and chipping, if we continue to do that patchwork, we might be able to get a few more years out of the pool. But if things start to eventually you get to the end of the lifespan of the pool shell.
I'm sure that's
And
on our list for future.
It is, and
expenditures.
we've actually gone beyond the expected life expectancy, and our pools have been in relatively good shape for how old it is. But that's something that we definitely have the conversation of looking ahead to what that's going to look like. So
What color are the lane lines?
to be determined, but I'll let you know once they're in.
DVD, I like it. I will just say it was kind of ironic that I noticed that at our pool this week, and then we swam at Redwood High School, which is a fairly new pool when you consider pools. And they had far more, I call them potholes, extremely large, all over that pool.
Oh, yikes.
Same kind of thing,
Are you
so.
feeling better about their pool now?
I
Yeah.
was actually feeling poorly for them because I thought, man, this
Brand
pool
new.
isn't that old and
Yeah.
it's showing a lot of.
That's one of those things, I mean, from what I understand, a lot of that can come with, the original work that was done, you know, what were the conditions, what, and how well the work was done, and just the conditions at the time. There's a lot of things that can go into the lifespan of a pool shell, but also the water balance, plays a big role in, how, in keeping your pool shell intact, and we've been able to maintain a pretty good, water balance, which is, you know, thankfully partly due to good pool maintenance, partly good to the water that we have coming in and all of that, and so
And
we've been very
amazing
lucky.
employees that we have.
Amazing employees coming in and a good legacy of pool maintenance from you know,
That's tremendous.
Gary Harrelson onward, but yeah, so we've been really lucky, and our pool's has had a lot more longevity than what was expected, but you know, it's not gonna last forever. So.
Yeah, okay. Did you have one?
I didn't, I just wanted to say thank you because, to JP's credit, I believe he stayed overtime or beyond his regular working day yesterday to make sure that we could put in, an extra lane line that had broken. I think he even went to Home Depot and, you know, kind of MacGyvered something for the swim team, and I appreciate that.
No, I will let him know, thank you for saying so.
Anybody else have any other questions? Just-
Nope, but thank you for helping Eric, if you didn't hear us earlier.
I heard, thank you for that.
Slide.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for everything, above and beyond, with everything you guys are doing. All right? Anything else you want to say? Oh, awesome, okay. We are moving on to H, board member items of interest, request for future agenda items. So
May I just ask a question before I
Not this one.
request something?
Yes, ma'am.
In what Stephen said earlier is about seniors, do we have anything in place to recognize or engage our seniors besides just classes? Just general question.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No, I mean, I don't know, I mean, classes, programs, events, but, you know, senior outreach would fall outside the scope, but, you know, in terms of checking in, isn't.
I know.
Isn't something that.
But I don't,
our
I
agency
don't,
would do.
true, that's why I'm asking questions before I would add it to an agenda item. I don't disagree with what he's saying with some of our seniors, since I know a few of which ones he's talking about.
Sure.
That,
I would say,
We could organize wheelchair races.
if I had to back that up, our fire department certainly knows who some of our most
Who?
vulnerable population
Oh,
residents
yeah.
are.
Oh.
The list.
Yes.
And they do check in from time to time, especially when conditions warrant it, you know, going through a heat wave or power, you know, a derated power outage or something, they know who the people are.
okay, no, yeah, they're there.
Okay. Yeah, and also, while I don't know Marilyn, I don't think, I do appreciate Linda's, but I also feel like I am not such a personal friend that I think that me showing up or reaching out to her, I think that's crossing a line that I don't feel comfortable doing, so, while I do appreciate all our seniors, if I know them personally, then, yeah, okay. Anybody else have any? I guess do we know, since you talked about fire going through and looking at all their supplies, are we moving anywhere forward to making sure that the sleeping arrangements are more appropriate as we?
You literally 30 minutes ago approved the budget for it.
Okay,
So,
yeah. So,
I
but
will tell you,
do we know
yes,
what
we
the
will start
timeline is for that? That's what I mean.
no, I
I
have no
saw
idea,
that.
I
Okay.
haven't even begun to do
Because
anything.
I know that it's in there, but I just was
We've got 2 other large
wondering,
projects we're also in the middle of,
Okay.
so we'll get to that.
I didn't know if that was like timelined yet, so
No.
that's why
Nope.
I was asking.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, so besides, I think that we all just want to do email updates and stuff like that, I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right,
Awesome.
all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, whatever.
We're adjourned.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Go Pat.